Welcome to the extra pod of greed.
This is the bonus episode for our YouTube members.
Yeah, so all three of you can listen. Hopefully it'll be more at some point soon. Anyway, we're just going to use this segment to talk. We haven't decided what the extra minutes will be.
But it's always going to be extra minutes that only you guys get to have.
Yeah, so first and foremost, give us a name for this section. It's just extra draws or whatever. I don't.
Yeah, it's like
something
maybe
clever. I'm not good at this.
Extra draw, maybe.
The last time I tried to think of a segment name, I got embroiled in a bit of drama.
Yeah, guys, I don't know. So. We never talk about this, but whenever we come up with segment names, Paul gets an email from some smaller like YouTuber who's like, you stole my name.
And I was like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Yeah, that happened recently. It with the Retro Rumble, so we're renaming it to Retro Rivals.
I mean, this happened with Pod of Greed, Retro Rumble. That happened somewhere else.
Pod of Greed.
Yeah,
yeah. With this podcast, because there was another Yu-Gi-Oh podcast, which is a very different one.
Yeah, very different.
They were
Couldn't
like
be more different.
Anime fanatic, kind of like almost like LARPing, I think, podcast. It was cool. Like they already had Pod of Greed. They'd had it for like I think a couple of years, so they reached out and we were able to kind of talk through some things. So it was fine, but it's kind of interesting. Anyway, what have you been up to lately? You been playing anything interesting, reading anything interesting, watching anything interesting?
I mean, I play my usual assortment of card games.
What's on the docket right now? Like, what's the card game docket?
So today is what for us? Today is Wednesday?
Yeah.
So the next game I'm probably playing is Digimon and then maybe some Magic over the weekend.
Okay.
Right now, my favorite decks to play are Blue Base Magnamon. You might remember Magnamon from the Digimon movie, one of Veemon's golden armor form. Mm-hmm. There's a whole deck for it. I used to play the yellow base version of it, but it got banned, or the deck didn't get banned. It just got hit on the ban list that we talked about previously, so I had to change. I changed it up to the blue base version where you run more Veemons, which is good because I like Veemon. That's the proper way to run the deck. And then I've been recently playing around with the 7 Great Demon Lords.
Yeah, in Digimon, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I am still trying so hard to convince myself that I can play another card game, and it's just so difficult.
You're a Yu-Gi-Oh player, man.
I'm a Yu-Gi-Oh player at heart. It's crazy because I've had to like reach a inflection point with Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at first, I really was, I was on the Kool-Aid of like just, I like the game. Then I kind of started to like be dissatisfied with parts of it and like Konami. And I still sort of am. But now I'm just like, I've accepted it. Konami's going to just like kind of abuse this game a little bit. But I'm going to play it because I like it. So
for me and Yu-Gi-Oh, at one point, this was my feelings with Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm either not playing Yu-Gi-Oh or I'm competing in Yu-Gi-Oh. That was around like TOS format where I could still play. Like I played Thunder Dragons. I had a strong deck, and so I felt like that was still a meaningful way to play the game. But once that format ended, competitive Yu-Gi-Oh was out for me. Like when Tearlaments hit the board.
I mean, that was like years later. Though.
It was years later, but that was it for me.
Yeah, you'd already decided. I think
like I was because I'd already been like out of the game for a bit because it hurt me when Thunder Dragons got hit by the ban list.
They're basically back now.
They're full power now.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably not very great.
I can't, but I have nowhere to play my favorite deck anymore because, as we talked about, it's extremely hard to play casual Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yeah,
and if I go down to one of the local card shops in this area, I can't guarantee that I'm going to have a good time. Yu-Gi-Oh players are on different energies at all times. You might walk into a room and everybody just wants to play Edison. But if I don't want to play Edison, I'm SOL. Or I'll walk into the room and everyone's ready to play modern Yu-Gi-Oh, but they're like it's only the most modern competitive decks in the format. And I brought my Plunder Patrol deck this week, and it's like that's not.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess maybe the optimist in me would say you should still try, right?
No,
you should still. No, I'm saying like that you should give it a shot and like see how it goes. But I know. At this point, we're kind of at a point with Yu-Gi-Oh where it's you get burned by that a couple of times, and you're just kind of like, I'm just not.
It's
worth
when you're playing down a tier in Yu-Gi-Oh, it's one of
so
the worst
miserable.
experiences you can ever have.
I never thought that there could be a game where I'm bitching about Yu-Gi-Oh again. Like I never thought there could be a game where a tier disparity can feel so great, because that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't actually talk about with Yu-Gi-Oh. Isn't that like, you know, currently maybe Yubel, Snake Eye, whatever like kind of the top things are, they stomp out like other stuff beneath them.
Right.
But that actually applies to like every tier. Like just, you know, if those are like tier 1, even like the tier 1.5 stuff will like stomp out tier like 2 stuff. Tier 2 stuff will stomp out tier 2.5. You know, however you want to like kind of break it down. Like tier 4 will stomp out tier 5. Like it goes that deep, because there are decks that are like not played in tournament but have some bullshit. Like,
I mean, it just goes to show how Yu-Gi-Oh card design has evolved over time.
Yeah.
Certain rules get broken, and that's what creates our next new Yu-Gi-Oh card design principle.
Yeah.
At one point, it was I remember your deck having a normal summon that can search.
Yeah.
It gave your deck inherently more consistency than every other deck around it, so it would stomp out all the decks that didn't have that.
Yeah.
Then it was the field spell that could also
search.
And so your deck usually had like both of those things. So now your deck was way more consistent and hard to stop with just like a singular Ash Blossom.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like that's what kind of makes it's sad, like in a way that they've like lost a good Yu-Gi-Oh player in you. Right, like, and it's not to say lost. Like, you still have decks. I know that you do,
and I'll keep updating them.
And so you'll still have your decks, and like, you know, we can still play. But it sucks that there are many players who probably don't find themselves in a far off situation than yours is, where they're just like, where do you play? Like, where do you kind of play at the power level that you want? And it's not offered. And I get so upset with Konami's lack of like owning that heart of the underdog thing. Like, own it. Make that low power format a thing.
Right.
Where we can, you know.
I've noticed the tier disparity in other card games. I talk about Magic and Digimon a lot. Digimon's, I think, in second place as far as tier disparities go. When you're playing down a tier in Digimon, it can feel, while you don't lose in one turn, it feels like you're just being cut by a little knife every single turn.
You're losing pace each turn. I've seen that. I've seen that in Digimon a little.
Because like a newer deck will just be able to do more things with less memory every turn.
Yeah.
So what you gradually, unless there's memory fixing tamers at play that you had to play for full cost, but they probably cheated out with some weird effect, where you are paying net more memory every turn than they are, but they're still putting out more cards than you.
Getting less for it.
So, yeah, you didn't lose immediately, but you're getting crushed, and you know it. It doesn't feel good. It looks a little bit better because, you know, you didn't just pick up your cards after one turn, but you might as well had.
Yeah, you know, it actually kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, how people will sort of idolize, like, GOAT format and these things, and Edison. But in their own way, they're just as bad. Like, good players in those formats, you know, they'll eat you alive.
Yep.
Now, the difference is, like, you'll feel like you got a chance to fight back. Like, you know, the duel won't end in, like, a turn. It might end in, like, 6 or something. But they were so far ahead of you every step of the way. Like, if you were actually not, like, playing the good stuff at the time. So, I don't know. It's not to say that, you know, those formats have their other benefits, but sometimes it does feel like kind of the idea of playing a long game of any card game, like the interactive back and forth, is a bit of a myth. Once tiered decks and power creep come into the equation, it kind of can become a myth.
The only time I feel that tiers aren't that big of a factor is when like if I'm playing in like a commander pod and like deck levels are all over the place. It's, someone could have a deck that they might classify as a 10. But it doesn't matter if your deck is a 10 if the other 3 players in the pod recognize that you have the most powerful deck and they all come for you. They can make it really hard for you to progress your game, even if their decks aren't as strong as yours. I've seen it happen, but the weird part about it is, well, that just means that the person with the strongest deck just did not get to have fun, because everyone was like, oh no, you can't be allowed to play cards.
Do you ever think it's kind of a dark existential card game question? Do you really like think that fun can be had mutually in card games? In like a game where you are trying to win. I put it that way because like I think if you can truly like let go of, like I'm just trying to mess around with friends, like we're having drinks and pizza, and like it's like you could probably have fun with that. But I'm talking about like if you built your deck to win and do a thing, and I built my deck to win and do a thing, like can fun be like a mutual thing? Like I the optimist in me wants to say yes, it can, but it's hard sometimes.
So I think the moment you build a deck with the intention of winning, you have consigned yourself to a much deeper hole to reach fun than you probably would assume. I think when you know nothing about the metagame of a card game, it's much easier to have fun. You guys can just slap cards around, have a good time. You're not thinking too much about optimization, but that moment you start optimizing, you start doing research, you start putting your cards together in very specific ratios and like strategies. Now it's less acceptable when you lose. At first, when it was kind of just chaos.
There's got to be more of an explanation for it then.
Yeah. I know usually whenever I first learn a new card game or I'm just trying it out, because I try out many card games, I don't care if I win or lose. I barely built the deck. Sometimes it's a pre-made deck. I barely understand the rules. I'm not invested in my own victory or defeat. But when I construct the deck where I know the rules, I know what I'm going for, and sometimes I'm net decking, sometimes I'm not. But if I put any amount of effort into that deck build, now it's a little bit less acceptable than when I lose.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky part. Like, I think fun can exist. At least I can only speak to Yu-Gi-Oh! I know like different card games, it changes. I think like fun can exist, but you almost have to hold yourself back a little bit sometimes if you want to have it. Like at times.
There was a time when I was furious in Digimon.
Okay.
And it shouldn't be a thing because the narrative is Digimon's a fun game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not fun, but there was a time when I was furious. I remember when the new Beelzemon Advanced deck came out in Digimon. It was it's their version of like Structure decks, the first competitive deck out the package. I was prepared for that deck. I had the cards I needed to upgrade that deck day 0 during the tournament, where we were all limited to only using purple cards, which meant the Beelzemon deck was legal for the event. I
think I know this story.
I upgraded my deck, and then I just started crushing everybody I got matched up with in the tournament. To be fair, it was only 4 rounds. So I crushed 3 people, and so next thing you know, I'm in the final. It's expected. Most people didn't have upgraded Beelzemon decks, but I matched up against a guy who just bust open the raw pre-constructed Beelzemon deck, and he just kind of starts high-rolling me, and his cards are hitting in like the perfect way. I'm a little slow. Maybe I made a mistake here or there, but I'm getting rolled, and he beats me 2-0. Paul, I was sick. I was so angry.
At what part? Like what part?
At the fact that I lost, when I was so sure I made the right choices when I built that deck. Had I just brought out if I had not made any changes to that Beelzemon deck, and that day just played out, if it went the same exact way, I wouldn't have been mad.
Yeah,
but I was mad because I put in the work to begin with.
The investment makes the losses feel more. Yeah, I get you. That's true. I guess it's kind of like a commitment thing. Like how much time have you invested in? Because now, like if you're just playing for fun and like we just open these packs and kind of no one cares, then it's easier for the loss to kind of just be written off as well. Like this is just how it goes. Like it's whatever. I'm gonna win some, I'm gonna lose some.
Yep.
But yeah, if you try, then suddenly it's different.
The moment, Because when we do our random games where we play with these mystery boxes,
Yeah.
I do my best, but it's hard for me to really care when I didn't really get to put too much effort into the deck building since I'm playing with random cards.
Yeah.
But the moment we add anything that makes this more of a constructed situation,
then you're
now I
investing
care.
more of yourself.
Early rare hunters, guys, if you haven't seen our rare hunters segment, which I'd assume you have, if you
You're a
haven't,
channel
check it
member
out.
here, you've probably watched it.
But in early rare hunters, I didn't care whether I won or lost those games. I cared a little because we were wagering cards, and I didn't want to lose my rare cards. But I couldn't be mad whether I won or lost those games. But late rare hunters,
Yeah, once your deck has an identity,
I care.
and you've worked on it. Yeah, no, it makes a difference. I really think it does. I think actually one other thing about that is I sometimes think Yu-Gi-Oh gets an unfair rep for being it's so crazy and awful and the power creep is so bad. But truthfully, I've seen how pissed people get at losing in all of these card games, and it sometimes seems like at the end of the day they're all about.
I saw a One Piece player rip up his cards.
Ooh, that's
Paul. He took them out the sleeves to rip them.
See, that's anger management issues.
And those
I
were
feel that's beyond whatever the game is.
It was a red Zoro deck, which was strong at the time. I'm pretty sure
worth some money.
I'm pretty sure there was some cards worth up in there. He unsleeved whatever his cards were, and he was just yeah, and he was mad.
That's psychotic. I don't know. I've seen people get mad at all of these games, so that's why I kind of have a hard time. I think I speak harshly about Yu-Gi-Oh because I play so much of it, but I feel if I invested the same amount into any other game, I'd just be equally critical.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if there's a point to saying that. I guess we're all kind of suffering together in a way. I've heard Magic players despise the way that card design has been in the last X amount of time, and
But I think that's why I think my favorite formats to play are draft-esque formats. When there's this random aspect to it, I find myself caring less about the result. Even though typically in draft you do construct your deck with the pool of cards you draft, I can only care as far as that drafting went. Once I reach that point of where I just didn't draft these specific cards, I don't care anymore. I can win, I can lose. I just did the best with what I had, and I can find solace in that. But when you
had the choice of everything,
when you have unlimited options and you could have done anything you wanted with your deck, and you believe you made the right choices, it feels horrible to lose because then you have to ask yourself, well, am I wrong?
Yeah, what did I do wrong?
Or was my opponent wrong? Was the judge wrong?
Yeah, can you blame the game? The game, fate kind of just deemed I have to lose this, and that's frustrating too.
I really wish I could just be Yugi. I think of all card game protagonists in anime and comics, manga, whatever, I think Yugi, and then who did I like? The guy from Card Fight Vanguard, the new show, the new S show, Yu Yu. Those two protagonists.
Is that Overdress?
Overdress, okay. Yeah. Those two protagonists just love playing their game so much. They the results weren't that important to them. It was the fun of the game, the fact that you're putting cards on the table. And I really want that to be how I feel when I play card games. I want to enjoy just the act of putting cards on the table. But I find that
really difficult.
The more effort I put in, before I start playing, the harder it is.
I guess it's human, though. I don't think that's an uncommon sentiment to have. I think I would almost say it kind of brings me back to what I was talking about earlier in the week. I'd made an amplifier video about Yu-Gi-Oh is an unfair game. You kind of got to deal with that. You have to come to terms with that. It's a little irrational. It's not a why would somebody do something that's unfair or rigged against them or where it can blow up in your face, right? And I think with these card games, the people who are able to do them every weekend and play modern Yu-Gi-Oh, something's a little off. And I don't say it as an insult. I say it as you have to accept that Yu-Gi-Oh is some crazy bullshit. You're gonna get shifted. You're gonna get some floodgates gonna get flipped. Someone's gonna do some things.
Yep.
And you're gonna do it to some people. And you have to be not only okay with losing to it, but also to like crushing the dreams of the person in front of you because they bricked and you opened amazingly. Like, it's hard to play Yu-Gi-Oh! When you know your opponent bricked, or when you know that like you're gonna win. Like when the result is kind of like, okay, you started to do your thing, they used a hand trap, you used called by on it, and now you just have to finish your combo kind of awkwardly as they're fuming over there or just kind of depressed and detached and dejected, and like you still have to like do the thing. Like it's like there's a little bit of, you have to be a little bit of a monster in a way.
I hate that moment in a card game where you win, your opponent is completely destroyed, and you have to then like either you ignore them or you try to like say,
how
good game. We had a good time.
How modest can you be?
Like, oh, that was a pretty good play there when you tried to like hit me with that hand trap, but I negated it.
Yeah. And I think I've had games where people don't mind kind of talking through their own defeat a bit, but I think more often with the way Yu-Gi-Oh plays out in particular, it's rough because Yu-Gi-Oh makes losses feel brutal. Like they can feel so hopeless on both ends. So it's.
But I hazard to say that if you're playing like Magic and one of your opponent, you think you're like a turn away from like reaching your win condition, and your opponent resolves a card that lets them go infinite in mana, and now the game is just over. You got these two well, people don't recognize this as much, but essentially in Magic the Gathering, everybody has Exodia in their deck. And it's your job to recognize if they have Exodia and how do you stop it. Because in Yu-Gi-Oh!, Exodia is 5 specific cards that have to hit the hand in order to insta-win. In Magic, Exodia is many combinations of many different cards that you have to learn what they are, how they work, and what they interact with in order to stop before it gets there. Because in these infinite mana, infinite draw, those infinite situations, the game is over. I had an opponent, he didn't have infinite anything at first. First, he made it so he had infinite draw power, where as he drew cards, his cards went right back into his deck so that he could infinitely draw. So essentially, his whole deck was his hand. Then from that, he was able to create infinite mana. He had to do it in parts. First, he made infinite black mana. Then he made infinite green mana. And while he's doing all these infinite things, sequencing his plays so that he wouldn't misplay, and I call a judge and he loses immediately.
Yeah.
That feels pretty bad.
Yeah,
that feels pretty bad.
Would quickly set in. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh's got a sense of hopelessness that sets in pretty fast. So
in Magic, it can take a few turns, but
when it's there, you know it. Yeah. That's always the thing with these card games. Like, there's always a point where you kind of know that you've won or that you've lost, and then you just have to contain that feeling somehow.
Because sometimes in defeat, it can be really hard to control how you feel in the moment. In some ways, Yu-Gi-Oh is more forgiving. While that turn that they beat you on is long, at least it's like the first or second turn.
Yeah, it feels like maybe you haven't gotten to commit so much effort and turns only to suddenly have it ripped away by somebody kind of getting an infinite mana loop or something like that. So
because when I've had games of Digimon without if we're not playing in tournament that's lasted an hour, and then I'll lose and I'm pissed. And it's like, well, you got to play, there were so many turns, it was back and forth. Yeah, but I lost, so I hate my opponent, I hate my deck, I hate this game, I hate this company.
No, I 100% get what you mean. I actually think it's sort of weird. I was saying before, you have to kind of have something off to play Yu-Gi-Oh. Mm-hmm. I think you have to have something even more off to be able to kind of let go of the wins and losses kind of easily. Because I think a lot of people lose their mind about the cards that beat them. I have seen people screaming and just pulling their hair out over please, they need to ban Shifter. It is ruining my favorite game. I just ban this thing. And I'm just well, I don't know. I think I've been playing so much Master Duel. Dude, I lost to a Blue Eyes. There's this very obscure card. is my last little story for this. The Rage of the Blue Eyes White Dragon, I think is what it's called.
There's a card with that name.
A card called Rage of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Have you heard of this card?
No.
It's this obscure little quick play spell. In fact, I'm going to look it up because I want to make sure that I get the text right.
I swear that I've never heard of this card.
It's garbage, and it's from like some random old tin or like Kaiba pack from like 2019 or something.
Rage of the Blue Eyes.
Yeah, here it is. It's from Legendary Duelist White Dragon Abyss. If you remember that from 2018. So this card, Rage with Eyes of Blue. That's what it's called.
I do not remember this.
Now listen, quick play spell. Banish this card and as many cards as possible from your hand, field, and graveyard face down. And if you do, special summon up to 3 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon from your deck. You cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this card except Blue Eyes White Dragon. So this is like this kind of like all hands on deck. All or nothing. I lose everything, right? Everything goes. Like I'm going to lose my hand, my field, my grave. It's all going face down to summon these 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons.
Where does it summon them from?
Just your deck. So,
interesting. Yeah. So if you don't have 3 Blue Eyes in your deck, you can't even use this.
You can summon up to 3.
Oh, up to 3. Okay.
But so they use Heat Wave, that card like where you can only summon like vanilla monsters, so neither player can summon. And then they just try to use these weird cards like Slash Draw and Bingo Machine to just get to Rage with Eyes of Blue and do anything to clear your board. Dark Holes, Raigekis, whatever, right?
Wow.
And someone hit me with this shit. And like I'm like I was in like master rank or like diamond rank or something, and like I'm playing Voiceless Voice. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna negate this thing or whatever, do this stuff. And like I got hit with that. And I got OTK'd by just 3 Blue Eyes in Master Duel and like Master Rank. And I'm just like, it's so insane, like you almost have to laugh. Like it's like, oh wow, I really never thought I would see the day that this like Rage with Eyes, but like it's a thing, people do it. And I've faced that deck like 3 times now. Like I lost the first time and I faced it a couple other times. And sometimes like they'll break and it doesn't work. It's like a glass cannon thing or whatever. Or now like I know to negate Heat Wave. But like,
I mean, because this is like it's like an endless like, ELO grind in those rating duels. I mean, you're gonna have some chaos agents, right?
Yeah, some people are just in it to be chaotic.
They feel like they hit their ceiling, and they need to keep playing for their points. So now they construct something horrific, Yeah,
I mean, one day in one of these episodes, maybe not this one, but like maybe in another one, I want to like really talk about how like I think like Master Duel's kind of brought out some of the sadism in me. A little bit, because like I mean I get nitty and gritty on there, man. I'm willing to scrap there are these decks that really think like they're getting freebies. Not on me. Like like these people who will play the Fossil Dyna stun decks, and it's so tempting to just like quit, right? Like, oh my god, he put down Fossil Dyna, he equipped it with Moon Mirror Shield, put down that Golgoganda continuous spell that like protects it or whatever,
That is dumb.
Necro Valley, Macrocosmos, like just everything terrible under the sun. I hate you. I want you to burn and die and suffer. Like I'm just gonna put every horrible card down. I'll still play though. Like I'm going to try like every trick in the book with whatever deck I'm playing. Voiceless Voice, Vanquished Soul, like any deck that if I can find a way, like I have crept around little things and set up victories over the course of many, many turns.
That is hard to do without a side deck.
Long-term things. Yeah, there's no side deck, and I'm just like, but if I draw this and I do this, and I can like set this in defense mode, and this will keep me alive for this many turns, like this will do this, and they can't swing over that because they can't special summon this, all these things, and like I'll keep track of like what's left in their deck. Because like, okay, so I know you're running Duality, I know you're running Extravagance, and like this other thing, and so I know that you're out of copies of that. And then I'll like tribute summon something like Saphira, the dragon thing that you're supposed to discard. And I'm like, okay, I can set low, and she's got 20-50 defense, which is 50 more than Inspector Border, so Inspector Border can't kill me, and I can tribute summon for Saphira and swing over this thing. After like doing this thing to deal with Moon Mirror Shield or whatever. It's like there's so many, but like I don't believe in letting anybody get freebies. I want people to work for it.
Right.
So I'll go into more detail on it in another episode. It'll be a fun story to say. But I've got stories, man. I've faced... last thing I'll say on this is I've faced so much shit in Master Duel that it has raised my tolerance level to like astronomical levels. Like nothing shocks me that like someone might have something, someone might pull some fucking shit out of their ass to beat me. But like now that I've seen it, I know, and like I'm willing to, go toe to toe with that. So.
Right.
Anyway, I don't know. I think that's probably a good place to stop it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was a good talk. I feel like we should name this episode. Yu-Gi-Oh gets a bad rap. Every card game sucks.
Yeah. if this is a video that was meant to get like views, like I was like, oh, it's a public video because it's a private one, so only they get to see it. But like, yeah, it's like every card game kind of sucks.
Yeah, there's. When you're losing, there's no such thing as a fun
that's
card
exactly.
game.
Yeah, that's what it really is. Every game sucks when you're losing.
Yeah.
There's not a game that's fun when you're losing. Like, not really. Like, you can say this is great, you can say this is all fine, but like when someone's hitting you with some shit, I don't know. I fucking hate this game.
That reminds me that when I was playing Lorcana for the second time ever, and I was just getting beat by this guy, and I'm like,
I was like, fuck this game.
I was like, fuck Disney, fuck
this
Mickey
game
Mouse,
is stupid, it's
Ravensburger,
badly
everybody
designed, and all these things.
I hated Lorcana while I was losing. Hey, I seen a kid turn on his mama while playing Lorcana.
Oh yeah, I forgot they would both be playing that.
I saw he was playing against his mom, and he called her a cheater, and she called him stupid.
You're stupid. Ooh, God, okay. Yeah, no, I've seen some shit. That should be another episode of this. Is like some of the shit we've seen.
Stories at car shops.
Because I've seen some parents, couples, siblings. Anyway, cool. Well, that's your extra episode of Pot of Greed for the week.
Yeah, guys. Be sure to give your thoughts about like how you felt about this episode, because this is an episode for you, so we can kind of do
we can do and
anything.
Like, say whatever. I mean.
This isn't for the algorithm or anything.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like, if there's certain like topics or kind of just stories, whatever, because we have been around the block with these games and with like content creation and stuff in the Yu-Gi-Oh space.
Our average age is in their 30s, so
yeah, like most people. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Cool. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. We appreciate you. Truly, we do. If you are a channel member, it really does mean a lot. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week for another one of these.
Pass turn.